I never thought it would come to this. I was a proud, independent woman, and yet here I was, sitting in my son's kitchen, staring down at a bowl of what was supposed to be my dinner. But it wasn't dinner, was it? It was dog food. I, Helen Winters, an 85-year-old retired nurse with a history of helping others, had come to trust my family, to believe that they had my back. After all, I raised my son, Brandon, with love, made sure he had everything he needed, sacrificed for his future. I gave my heart, my time, and my money for them. So how could they do this to me? "Here you go, Mom," Brandon said, sliding the bowl in front of me with an innocent smile on his face. His wife, Emily, stood beside him, a knowing smirk on her lips as she watched me intently. At first, I couldn't even understand what was happening. I thought it was some kind of sick joke. I mean, surely they wouldn't do this to me, right? Surely my son wouldn't serve me something meant for a dog. I opened the can they had placed in front of me, and my stomach turned as the pungent smell wafted through the air. It was the unmistakable scent of wet, mushy dog food. "What's this?" I asked, trying to hide the shaking in my voice. I was suddenly aware of how weak I had become over the past few years. My hands, once so steady, trembled as I clutched the spoon, trying not to show how much this hurt. Brandon chuckled, the kind of chuckle that seemed like it was meant to mock me, not comfort me. "It's dog food, Mom. You've been acting like a burden lately, so we thought you'd like something more fitting." Froze. Did he just say that? Did he really call me a burden? My mind raced as I tried to comprehend his words. I had spent years taking care of him, teaching him the value of respect, of kindness, of family. Yet here he was, treating me like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. Emily's laughter broke through the tension. "It's just a joke, Helen. Relax," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "We thought it'd be funny to see how you'd react. Besides, you're always so picky about food, and we thought it would be nice to switch things up." But I knew better. This wasn't just a joke. This was something far deeper, something that cut to the core. I could see it in their eyes, the contempt, the disdain. I was no longer the mother who raised them, the woman they should have been grateful for. I was a burden, an old woman whose presence they couldn't wait to get rid of. My chest tightened as I tried to hold back tears. This wasn't the family I had worked so hard to build. This wasn't the son I had loved with all my heart. But as I sat there, silently staring at the bowl, I realized something. This moment, as cruel as it was the tipping point. I had given them everything, and they had taken it all for granted. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Not anymore. I stood up, my knees creaking beneath me, and I walked towards the door. "You may think this is funny, but I'm done," I said, my voice steady but filled with unspoken pain. "You'll regret this." I left their house that night, walking away from the people I thought I knew, from the family I had raised. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there anymore. As I walked out into the night, I made a vow to myself. I would make them pay for what they did. They thought I was weak, that I didn't have anything left. But they didn't know what I had been planning all along. And that's when I made the call. I had been working on something in secret. A plan that would bring them to their knees. And now it was time to put it into motion. Just as I dialed the number, a knock on the door startled me. The sound echoed through the empty hallway. But this wasn't just any knock. It was the knock of someone who had the power to change everything. The door opened, and in walked a man I had hired months ago, my lawyer, Daniel Roberts. His presence was like a shield, and I felt a strange sense of comfort wash over me. He walked into the room, looked at me, then at Brandon and Emily, and I saw the tension in their faces. "What's going on here?" Daniel asked, his voice calm but authoritative. Brandon tried to act cool, but I could see the nervousness creeping in. "Nothing, Daniel. Just a little joke." I shook my head, tears beginning to well up in my eyes. "It's not a joke, Brandon. They fed me dog food and laughed. But it's not funny anymore. I'm done." Daniel turned to Brandon, his eyes cold. "Is that so? You've been treating your mother like this, and you think you can get away with it. I saw the fear in Brandon's eyes as he tried to justify himself. But Daniel wasn't having any of it. He stepped forward, holding up a document. "This," Daniel said, "is the surprise I've been working on for months. It's your mother's will, Brandon. You tried to forge it, didn't you? You thought I wouldn't catch it. But I did. And now you're going to pay for it." I could feel the weight of the moment. The truth was finally out. And as Brandon and Emily's faces turned pale, I knew this was just the beginning. But what happened next would truly shut them up. And they wouldn't see it coming. Cliffhanger. The moment I handed Brandon the documents, I watched as his world came crashing down around him. But as the reality of the situation set in, I couldn't help but wonder, was this enough to make him understand the consequences of his actions, or was it just the first step in a much bigger plan? I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I watched my son, Brandon, and his wife, Emily, try to digest the reality of what Daniel had just handed them. The lawyer's document was more than just a piece of paper. It was the weight of years of deception, manipulation, and cruelty finally catching up with them. Brandon fumbled with the envelope, his hands shaking. "What's this? What are you talking about?" he stammered, his usual arrogance gone. I had never seen him look so small, so vulnerable. Emily, on the other hand, looked unfazed, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She had always been the one pulling the strings in their marriage, always whispering in his ear, always plotting behind closed doors. But tonight she was losing control. And I wasn't going to let them get away with it anymore. Daniel remained silent, letting the tension build in the room. The silence was deafening. I stood there, watching them struggle with the consequences of their actions, feeling a strange satisfaction. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one being made to feel small. For once, they were the ones at the mercy of someone else. Brandon finally tore open the envelope and unfolded the document inside. His eyes widened as he read through the will. I could see the shock in his face, the disbelief. He turned to Emily, his voice hoarse. This can't be real. This isn't what we agreed on." "What do you mean, what we agreed on?" I asked, my voice steady but filled with quiet rage. "Did you think I was just going to sit back and let you take everything from me? Did you think I wouldn't protect myself? You're right, this isn't what we agreed on, Brandon. This is what you tried to steal." Daniel stepped forward, his presence intimidating. "Your mother has been very smart, Brandon. She knew what you and Emily were up to. She knew you were planning to forge her will and steal everything she had worked for. That's why I've been working with her on this for months. The moment you signed those documents, the moment you thought you could get away with it, we had you." Brandon's face turned crimson as the truth sunk in. He had thought he could outsmart me, take advantage of me in my old age, but he was wrong. I wasn't the same woman he thought I was. I wasn't the frail, helpless old lady he could push around. "Mom, please, you don't understand," he said, his voice pleading. "I did it for us. For our future. I didn't mean to hurt you. You know I love you, right?" I shook my head, the pain in my chest overwhelming. "Love? Is that what you call it, Brandon? You love me so much that you're willing to destroy me for money. You love me so much that you fed me dog food and laughed in my face." My voice cracked, but I held it together. "No, you don't love me. You love what I can give you, and when I stopped being useful, you threw me away." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I wasn't going to cry for them. Not anymore. They didn't deserve my tears. Not after everything they had done. Emily, who had been silent up until now, suddenly spoke, her voice sharp. "You don't get it, do you? We did this for your own good, Helen. You're getting old. You're a burden. We needed the money to secure our future. You've had your time. Now it's our turn." I froze at her words. It was like a slap to the face, but I refused to let it break me. Instead, I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You don't get it, Emily. You think you're entitled to my life, to my money. But you're wrong. And that's why you'll never get what you want. Because in the end, I'm going to make sure you pay for everything you've done." Brandon and Emily exchanged nervous glances, their confidence quickly evaporating. They had never seen me like this before. They had underestimated me, thinking that because I was old I was weak. But I was anything but weak. Daniel's voice broke through the tension. "It's over, Brandon. You can't undo what you've done. Your mother's will is legally binding. And I've already contacted the authorities. They'll be here soon, and you'll have to answer for your actions." The color drained from Brandon's face as the reality of his situation hit him. The weight of his betrayal was too much to bear. Emily looked like she was about to speak, but no words came out. They were trapped, caught in a web of lies and greed they had woven themselves into. I felt a strange sense of relief, but also a deep sadness. How had it come to this? How had my own flesh and blood turned on me? I had spent my life giving, loving, and nurturing, and this was how they repaid me. But now I was finally taking control. Now I had the power. And I wasn't going to let them get away with it. The doorbell rang, and I knew that the law was about to catch up with them. My lawyer stepped forward, ready to usher them into the consequences they had been avoiding for so long. "You're done," Daniel said, his voice calm but firm. "Everything you've done, every lie you've told, is coming to light. And there's nothing you can do to stop it." I watched as Brandon and Emily's world crumbled. They had no more excuses, no more lies to hide behind. They had underestimated me, but now they would learn the hard way that there were consequences for betrayal. But what happened next, when the authorities arrived, was something I never expected. As the door opened and the officers stepped inside, I could see the fear in Brandon's eyes. But it wasn't just fear for what was coming, it was fear of what they had done. They had crossed a line, and now there was no turning back. What happened next would turn everything upside down for them, and it would be something neither of them would ever forget. The door creaked open, and 2 police officers stepped into the room. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the silence, punctuating the tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. My heart raced, not from fear but from anticipation. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for, the moment that would make everything I had endured finally worth it. Brandon's face was pale, his mouth dry, as he shifted uncomfortably on his feet. Emily, who had been standing with her arms crossed, now looked uneasy, her earlier confidence shattered. She exchanged a quick glance with Brandon, but neither of them spoke. They knew they were cornered. There was no escape now. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" one of the officers asked, his voice gentle but firm. I nodded, my eyes not leaving Brandon and Emily. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "These 2 have something to answer for." The officers exchanged a brief look before turning their attention back to the couple standing before them. "What's going on here?" one of the officers asked, his gaze sharp as he sized up Brandon and Emily. I didn't need to say anything more. My lawyer, Daniel, stepped forward, handing them the document from my will. "This is what's going on," he said, his voice calm but filled with authority. "Brandon Winters and his wife, Emily, have been forging Mrs. Winters' will for months, trying to steal her assets. They have been plotting behind her back, thinking they could get away with it." I watched as the officers took the document and began to read through it. The room was so quiet, I could hear the rustling of the paper as they flipped through the pages. Brandon was still standing there, his face flushed with a mixture of disbelief and guilt. Emily, however, was starting to look more and more desperate, her eyes darting nervously around the room as if looking for a way out. "It's not what you think," Brandon finally managed to say, his voice cracking. "We were just trying to take care of her. We needed the money to secure our future." I shook my head, my frustration growing. "Take care of me? By feeding me dog food? By trying to steal everything I've worked for?" My voice shook with anger now. "Don't you dare try to justify your actions, Brandon. You and Emily thought you could get away with it, but you didn't count on me being smarter than you thought." Daniel stepped forward, his calm demeanor never wavering. "They've been forging signatures, manipulating legal documents, and attempting to control the finances that rightfully belong to Mrs. Winters. We've gathered all the evidence we need to prove that they were planning to take everything she has. The officers nodded, their faces hardening. Brandon Winters, Emily Winters, one of the officers said, his voice stern. You are under investigation for attempted fraud and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Brandon's eyes widened in panic. This is a mistake. We didn't. Save it, the officer interrupted. We have the evidence. It's over. Emily's face went white, her eyes darting toward the door as if she was considering running. But it was too late. The door was already closed. There was no escape. I watched as the officers handcuffed them, their faces now a mix of disbelief and fear. For so long I had been the one who felt helpless, the one who had to endure their cruelty. But now they were the ones who were powerless. The officer who had been speaking to them turned to me. We'll take them from here, ma'am. You're free to go if you'd like, but you may want to stay for the report. I nodded, my heart still pounding. It was hard to believe that it was finally over, that I had managed to take back control of my life. But I wasn't ready to leave just yet. I wanted to see the entire process unfold. I wanted to watch as Brandon and Emily faced the consequences of their betrayal. I turned to Daniel. You did it, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You really did it. Daniel gave me a small smile, the kind of smile that spoke volumes without saying a word. You did it, Helen. You've always had the strength inside you. You just needed to let it out. As I stood there, watching my son and his wife being led away in handcuffs, I felt a mix of emotions. There was relief, yes, but there was also a sadness that I couldn't shake. These were my family members, the people I had once loved. And now, they were nothing more than strangers who had betrayed me for their own gain. But I couldn't dwell on that. Not now. Not when I had finally taken control of my own life again. For so long I had allowed them to dictate my existence. But not anymore. I'm going to be okay, I whispered to myself, more for reassurance than anything else. And for the first time in a long time I believed it. The officers escorted Brandon and Emily out of the house, and I stood there for a moment, just taking it all in. Felt surreal, like a dream. But it was real. And I was finally free. But little did I know, this was only the beginning of a new chapter in my life. One where I would fight for my dignity, my freedom, and my peace of mind. As the door closed behind the officers, I stood there, feeling the weight of what had just happened. But what was next for me? What would I do now that my son and his wife were no longer a part of my life? The future was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let anyone push me around ever again. The air in the house felt different now. Lighter but also colder. It was strange to feel free after so long, but there was a part of me that was still hesitant, unsure of what came next. My son and his wife had been removed from my life, but the void they left behind still felt heavy. I didn't know if I would ever fully get over the betrayal, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let anyone take advantage of me again. I stood there for a while, staring at the door where the officers had taken them away. The silence was deafening. It was almost as if the house had been holding its breath for years, and now that the truth was out, it could finally exhale. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Are you all right, Helen? Daniel's voice broke through my thoughts. He had been standing by, watching the entire scene unfold, but now he was offering me a sense of comfort that I didn't know I needed. I turned to face him, forcing a smile. I think so. I didn't expect things to happen so quickly. But I'm glad it's over. Daniel nodded, but his expression was serious. It's over for now, but you've made some enemies, Helen. They're not going to take this lying down. They'll try to fight back, especially now that they know they're losing everything. I felt a chill run down my spine. He was right. This wasn't just a small victory. I had taken something from them, something they valued more than anything else. And I knew they would stop at nothing to get it back. I'm ready for whatever comes next, I said, trying to sound confident. I've dealt with enough over the years. I won't back down now. Daniel gave me a small smile. That's the spirit. But remember, you're not alone in this. I'll be here to help you through the legal process, and I'll make sure they don't try anything else. You've earned this freedom, Helen. It's time to start living for yourself again." For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I wasn't just fighting for my property or my money anymore. I was fighting for my dignity, my voice. I had spent so many years being pushed aside, dismissed as just an old woman. But now I had taken control. Now I was in charge of my own life. "Thank you, Daniel," I said softly. "I don't know what I would have done without you." He nodded, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "You had it in you all along, Helen. I just helped you find it." As the days passed, the reality of what I had done began to settle in. Brandon and Emily were gone. The house felt quieter without them, but it was a peaceful kind of quiet. I no longer had to worry about their constant judgment, their manipulations. It was just me now, and for the first time in years I was okay with that. But as the weeks went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just around the corner. I knew Brandon and Emily weren't going to give up so easily. They'd try to find a way to get back at me, to reclaim what they thought was rightfully theirs. I just didn't know when or how they would strike. I spent the next few weeks working with Daniel to finalize everything, ensuring that my will was ironclad, making sure there were no loopholes that could be exploited. Every detail was important, and I wasn't about to let them worm their way back into my life. And then one evening, just as I was finishing my dinner, the phone rang. I hesitated before picking it up, sensing that this could be the call I had been waiting for. Helen Winters. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, but it was calm and professional. "Yes," I replied, my heart skipping a beat. "Who's this?" "This is Detective Thomas Miller from the local precinct. I'm calling about the situation with your son and his wife. We have some new developments that you need to know about." My heart dropped. I was expecting something, but not this. "What developments?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "There's been a report filed. They've accused you of elder abuse, Helen. They're claiming that you've manipulated them into signing over control of the property, that you've used your age and health against them. It's a serious accusation." I sat back in my chair, the world spinning around me. This couldn't be happening. They were trying to turn everything back on me. They were trying to destroy everything I had worked so hard for. "What do I do?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "You don't need to worry," Detective Miller assured me. "We'll look into the claim, but there's no evidence to suggest that it's true. We've already spoken to your lawyer, and he's provided us with your signed documents. You're in the clear for now. But I wanted to make you aware that they've made this move, and it could get more complicated from here." I let out a shaky breath, trying to steady myself. "Thank you, Detective. I appreciate the call." As I hung up the phone, I felt the weight of the situation settle over me. Brandon and Emily weren't just going to walk away. They were going to keep fighting, keep trying to tear me down. But I wasn't going to let them. Not this time. I stood up, walking to the window and looking out at the peaceful night sky. For so long I had allowed my son and his wife to control my life, to dictate my every move. But not anymore. Now it was my turn. And I would fight with everything I had to make sure they never took anything from me again. As I stood there staring out the window, I couldn't help but wonder, what would they do next? What other lies would they try to spread to get their hands on what was mine? But whatever it was, I was ready. I had fought for too long to give up now. The real battle was only just beginning. The days after the call from Detective Miller were filled with a kind of tension I couldn't shake. Every time the phone rang, my heart would race in anticipation, wondering if it was Brandon or Emily trying to make one last move to undermine me. But it wasn't just them. There was something else I was afraid of, something bigger, something I couldn't yet understand. It felt like I was living in a storm, waiting for the next wave to crash down on me. I spent most of my time in the house alone, going over the legal documents Daniel had drawn up for me. I studied every clause, every word, making sure there were no gaps for Brandon and Emily to exploit. My eyes were tired, my mind weary from the constant worry, but I couldn't afford to rest. I had to stay sharp because I knew they wouldn't stop. Then one day it came. A knock at the door. My pulse quickened as I stood up from my chair and made my way to the door. When I opened it, I wasn't surprised to see Daniel standing there, looking more serious than I had ever seen him. "What is it?" I asked, already dreading whatever news he had to bring. "It's bad, Helen," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. His face was grim, and I could see the weight of what he was about to tell me in his eyes. "Brandon and Emily have gone public with their accusation. They've filed a lawsuit against you. They're claiming that you manipulated them into signing over the house and that you used your age and health against them. They've got their lawyer working on this, and they're spreading the story to anyone who will listen." I felt the blood drain from my face as the words hit me like a punch to the gut. "But that's a lie. They're the ones who've been manipulating me. They're the ones who tried to steal from me." I know, Daniel said, his voice softening as he placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "But the problem is, they've managed to get a few people to believe them. And with the way things are right now, it's going to be hard to fight this in court." I sank down into the chair, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. How had it come to this? I had trusted them, loved them, sacrificed everything for them. And now they were turning the story around, making me out to be the villain. "You can't let them do this, Daniel," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "You have to stop them. They can't get away with this. They can't ruin my life again. I'm going to do everything I can, Helen. I'm not letting them win," he said firmly. "But I need to warn you, this is going to get ugly. They've got money, they've got influence, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to tear you down." The fear in his voice mirrored the fear in my chest. But even in my fear, there was a sense of resolve. I had fought too hard to let them win now. I had spent too many years letting them walk all over me, and I wasn't going to do it anymore. "I won't back down," I said, my voice steely. "I'll fight them with everything I have. I've already lost too much to let them take anything more." Daniel nodded, his expression softening with pride. "I know you will, Helen. You've got more strength in you than they'll ever understand." We sat together in the living room, talking through the next steps, strategizing for the fight ahead. But even as we worked, I couldn't help but feel the weight of what was coming. I had no idea what they had planned, but I knew one thing for sure. They weren't going to stop until they had everything they wanted. That night after Daniel left, I couldn't sleep. The house felt too quiet, too empty. For years, I had filled it with the laughter of my family, with the comfort of knowing I was loved and needed. But now, that warmth had been replaced with a cold, unsettling silence. I couldn't escape the thought that Brandon and Emily were still out there, plotting their next move, trying to figure out how to take everything from me. I walked through the house, the darkness closing in around me, my mind spinning with every possible outcome. How could they do this to me? What had I done to deserve this betrayal? I had raised Brandon, loved him, done everything I could to make him the man he was. But now it felt like he had erased everything, the love, the care, the sacrifices. As I reached the kitchen, I noticed something strange. A small envelope was sitting on the counter, completely out of place. I hadn't seen it before. My heart skipped a beat as I picked it up, my fingers trembling as I turned it over. There was no return address, no name on the front, just a simple piece of paper inside. I unfolded the paper, and my stomach dropped as I read the note. "We know what you're doing, and we're not going to let you get away with it. You'll regret crossing us. This isn't over." The message was short, but the threat was clear. Brandon and Emily were watching me. They were waiting for the right moment to strike, and I had no idea when or how it would come. I crumpled the paper in my hand, my body shaking with a mix of fear and rage. I had expected them to keep fighting, but this felt different. It was personal. They weren't just trying to take my money anymore. They were trying to break me. Just as I was about to throw the note into the trash, I heard a loud knock at the door. My heart stopped in my chest. Could this be them? Was this the beginning of their final attempt to destroy me? I took a deep breath and made my way to the door, knowing that whatever was on the other side was about to change everything. The knock echoed through the quiet house, sending a jolt of tension through my chest. I hesitated for a moment, my hand frozen on the doorknob. My heart pounded as I wondered if it was Brandon or Emily, or perhaps someone sent by them, trying to intimidate me further. I gripped the note tightly in my hand, as if holding on to it could somehow give me strength. Taking a deep breath, I turned the handle and opened the door, bracing myself for whatever was on the other side. Standing there was a man I hadn't seen before. He was tall, well-dressed in a dark suit, and exuded an air of confidence that made me pause. His eyes, though, were the most unsettling, cold, calculating, and sharp. He had the look of someone who didn't just walk into a room. He controlled it. "Good evening, Mrs. Winters," he said, his voice smooth, yet carrying an underlying threat. "My name is Richard Hayes. I'm representing Mr. Winters and Mrs. Winters in a legal matter. May I come in?" I didn't invite him in. Instead, I stood there, blocking the doorway, my mind racing. What was this about? Another attempt to scare me. Another lawyer trying to manipulate me into giving in. "I'm not interested in hearing anything you have to say," I said, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at me. "I've already made my decision." He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like a pawn in someone else's game. "I understand that you're upset, Mrs. Winters. But this isn't about your emotions. This is about what's rightfully yours. Or rather, what you think is yours." His words caught me off guard. What did he mean by that? "What do you mean?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "If this is about Brandon and Emily, I don't want to hear it. I've already spoken with my lawyer." Richard stepped closer, his presence imposing. "It's not just about them, Mrs. Winters. You see, there's a matter of your mental state." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You've been unwell, haven't you? It's only natural that you might be confused about your decisions." My stomach dropped. It hit me like a punch to the gut. Was he insinuating that I wasn't in my right mind? Was he going to try to have me declared mentally incompetent? "I don't need your opinion on my health," I snapped, my voice rising. "I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions. And I've already made them." Richard didn't seem fazed by my outburst. In fact, he almost seemed amused. "I'm sure you believe that. But we have a team of experts who are prepared to testify that your current state is not what it once was." I could feel my hands tremble as he spoke. This was what I had feared. Their attempt to discredit me, to make it look like I was the one in the wrong. They had always thought of me as weak, but now they were trying to turn the tables in their favor. "You have no right to come into my home and threaten me like this," I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. "Leave now, or I'll call the police." Richard smiled again, that same cold smile. "I'm not threatening you, Mrs. Winters. I'm merely giving you a choice. You can either accept what we're offering and move on, or we can take this to court and see how much of your family legacy remains after the truth comes out." I knew what he meant. They were trying to destroy me, not just legally but emotionally. They wanted me to doubt myself, to question whether I was capable of defending what was mine. And for a moment I almost felt like I might crumble. But then something clicked inside me. Well, I wasn't going to let them win. Not like this. Not after everything I had been through. I had spent too long living in their shadow, too long letting them control me, manipulate me. This was the moment where it all changed. "Get out," I said firmly, stepping back and closing the door in his face before he could say another word. I stood there, my breath coming in short gasps, my heart still racing. I had expected an attack, but this was different. This was an all-out assault on my dignity, on my very identity. They weren't just trying to take my house anymore. They were trying to take my voice, my sanity, and turn me into someone I didn't even recognize. I looked at the note in my hand again, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about property anymore. This was about something deeper. Something that I couldn't let them steal. I picked up the phone and called Daniel. He's back, I said, my voice shaking with anger. Richard Hayes. He's trying to discredit me, make me look crazy, make me doubt myself. They're playing dirty, Daniel. I need your help. I'm on it, Helen, Daniel said, his voice calm but firm. This is exactly what I was worried about. They've crossed a line now, and I'm going to make sure they don't get away with it. I hung up the phone, my hands still trembling, but my mind clearer than ever. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. This was a fight for my life, my legacy, my very identity. I wasn't going to let them take that from me. But as I sat there, stewing in my anger and fear, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. If Richard and his team were pulling out all the stops, then I had to be prepared for whatever they had up their sleeves. And I wasn't sure I was ready for the fight that was coming. The days following Richard Hayes's visit were a blur of anxiety, sleepless nights, and mounting tension. I couldn't shake the image of his cold, calculating eyes, nor the way his words echoed in my mind. They were trying to break me, to strip away my dignity, my legacy, and the very essence of who I was. It wasn't just about money or property. It was a battle for my soul. Daniel was relentless in his efforts, reassuring me with each call, each email, each meeting. But no matter how many times he assured me that we were in control, I couldn't help but feel like I was sinking deeper into a pit. My son and his wife were still out there, plotting, scheming, trying to tear me down at every turn. And now, with Richard's involvement, it felt like the walls were closing in on me. It was a quiet evening when the next blow came. I was sitting in the living room, the house dimly lit by the soft glow of the lamp, trying to distract myself with a book. But my mind kept wandering back to the looming battle, to the feeling that something big was coming, something I wasn't prepared for. The sudden ring of the doorbell startled me. My pulse quickened. I wasn't expecting anyone, and after everything that had happened, I wasn't eager to see another stranger at my door. But when I opened it, I wasn't greeted by another lawyer or a police officer. Standing there, looking as if she belonged in another world entirely, was a woman I didn't recognize. She was tall, dressed in an elegant dark suit, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun. Her face was composed, but her eyes held a sharpness that made me instantly wary. I didn't know her, but I could tell she wasn't here to make small talk. "Mrs. Winters," she said, her voice smooth and professional. "I'm Jeanette Carter. I've been hired by Mr. Winters and Mrs. Winters to handle certain matters. May I come in?" I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. Another one. I stepped back, instinctively blocking the door. What is this? More games. More threats. Jeanette didn't flinch. She simply stood there, poised, waiting for me to respond. "I assure you, Mrs. Winters, I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to offer you a solution. But only if you're willing to listen." My mind raced. I could tell this wasn't just another lawyer or agent like the others. There was something different about her, something unsettling. I didn't know what her angle was, but I wasn't about to let her inside without at least understanding why she was here. "I'm not interested in any more solutions from them," I said firmly, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at me. "I've heard enough." Jeanette's lips curled into a thin smile. "I understand your hesitation, Mrs. Winters. But this is different. You see, we've been reviewing the situation carefully, and we believe there's a way to resolve all of this without further damage. A way for you to walk away with everything you want, and more. But you'll need to cooperate." "Cooperate?" I repeated, incredulous. "You're here to tell me to give in to their demands." "No, not at all," she said smoothly, her voice cutting through my confusion. "I'm here to offer you an alternative. Way out. You don't have to keep fighting this battle if you don't want to." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. What was she talking about? An alternative? A way out? From what? The more she spoke, the more I realized that this wasn't some standard legal negotiation. This was something else entirely. Jeanette took a step forward, her heels clicking against the floor as she closed the distance between us. "What if I told you that there's a way for you to hold on to your home, your assets, your peace of mind, and for your son and his wife to walk away with what they've already taken without further conflict. My stomach churned. What do you mean? What they've already taken? I asked, my voice sharp with suspicion. I mean the documents, Mrs. Winters. The ones that were signed under your name. The ones that Mr. Winters and Mrs. Winters have been using to claim ownership of your property. We've reconsidered the way things are going. And quite frankly, the best option for all parties is to settle this outside of court. To resolve this quietly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're asking me to just let them have it? To let them get away with all of this? After everything they've done to me? Jeanette's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, I saw something other than calm calculation in her gaze. I'm offering you peace, Mrs. Winters. A way to end this nightmare without dragging it out any longer. You don't have to go through the public humiliation of a trial, and you don't have to deal with the stress of fighting your own flesh and blood. You can walk away from this with everything intact. But you have to make a choice. I could feel the blood rushing to my head, the anger rising like a tidal wave, threatening to crash down on everything she was saying. How dare she try to make this sound so easy? How dare she think that I would just roll over and let them win? I don't need your peace, I spat, stepping back from the door. I need justice. I need them to face the consequences of their actions. And I won't let them get away with this. Not now, not ever. Jeanette didn't respond immediately. She simply stood there, watching me, calculating her next move. Very well, she said, her tone flat. But know this, Mrs. Winters. The offer still stands. And should you change your mind, we'll be here. Waiting. With that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving me standing at the threshold, my mind spinning with confusion, rage, and uncertainty. What was this woman really offering me? What game were they playing? And why did it feel like there was something even darker lurking beneath the surface? As I watched her retreating figure disappear into the night, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. What was she really after? And why did I feel like this was only the calm before the storm? I had no idea what I was walking into next, but I knew one thing. This wasn't over yet. The days that followed Jeanette's visit felt like an endless loop of uncertainty. Each time I passed by the door, my mind would race. Was she going to show up again? Was there something more to her offer that I hadn't understood? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn into a web, and the more I tried to pull away, the tighter it seemed to get. I spent hours on the phone with Daniel, discussing our next steps. He was confident, reassuring me that we had the upper hand, but I could tell he was worried too. Jeanette's words kept echoing in my mind, and I couldn't escape the haunting thought that she knew something I didn't. That she had a card up her sleeve that we hadn't seen coming. My phone rang late one evening, cutting through the silence of the house. The caller ID read, Daniel Roberts. I picked it up immediately, eager for any news that might shed some light on this mess. Hello, I said, my voice still tense from the recent encounter. Helen. Daniel's voice came through, steady but with a hint of urgency. We've hit a roadblock. I need you to stay calm. I've been looking into some things, and it turns out there's something you don't know about the documents Brandon and Emily have been using. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? What don't I know? They've been working with someone, a third party, someone who has been tampering with illegal papers. They've forged signatures. This isn't just a case of them trying to steal your house. They've been manipulating the entire process. And it's been happening for a lot longer than you realize. I felt my blood run cold. What are you saying? Are you telling me this is all a bigger conspiracy? It's starting to look that way, Daniel said, his voice dropping to a whisper. I've been digging into the records, and there's someone behind all of this. Someone who's been orchestrating everything from the shadows. And that person, Helen, might be someone you know. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of his words crashing over me like a tidal wave. Who? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Who is behind all of this? I don't have concrete proof yet, Daniel replied, his tone cautious. But I suspect it's someone close to you. Someone who has been playing both sides of this game. I couldn't breathe. My mind reeled, trying to piece together the fragments of information. Someone close to me. It could be anyone, Brandon, Emily, but who else could it be? Who else had access to my life, my documents, my family's secrets? Daniel, what should I do? I asked, the panic creeping into my voice despite my efforts to remain calm. How do we stop this? How do I protect myself from whoever is behind this? I need time, Helen. I'll need to get deeper into this to figure out who's been pulling the strings. But for now, you need to stay alert. Watch your back. This is far from over. I nodded, even though I knew he couldn't see me. I understand. I'll be careful. The call ended, and I sat there in the darkness of my living room, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Who could it be? Who in my life could have been working with Brandon and Emily to tear me down? The thought that someone close to me might be involved was too much to bear. I stood up, walking slowly to the window, looking out at the darkened street. The house felt emptier now, more isolated. What had once been a place of comfort and security now felt like a battleground. And as much as I wanted to believe I was in control, I knew that the fight wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. The doorbell rang again. Froze, my heart racing. No one ever came to visit this late. Who could it be now? Another lawyer? A bill collector? Or was it the person Daniel had mentioned? Someone who had been playing me all along? I walked slowly to the door, my mind swirling with fear and confusion. When I opened it, I wasn't expecting the person standing there. It was Richard Hayes, the same man who had tried to intimidate me weeks ago. Only this time his expression was different. It wasn't smug or cold. It was tense, almost anxious. "I need to speak with you," he said, his voice low. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. I didn't trust him, but there was something in his demeanor now that made me pause. Was this a trap? Or was he genuinely here to tell me something important? "What is this about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rising fear. "I'm not here to make threats," Richard said, his eyes scanning the room before he stepped closer, lowering his voice even further. "I'm here to warn you. Things are moving faster than you think. And if you don't take action soon, you'll lose everything." I narrowed my eyes, my pulse quickening. "What are you talking about?" Richard glanced over his shoulder, as if making sure no one else was around, before he stepped inside, uninvited. "I know what you're dealing with. I know what's happening behind the scenes. And I'm telling you, if you don't take control of this now, you'll be out of the picture completely. You won't just lose your home. You'll lose your dignity, your reputation, everything." I crossed my arms, trying to hide the panic rising inside me. "So now you want to help me?" Richard nodded. "Not help you, but warn you. I'm not on your side, Mrs. Winters. But I don't want to see anyone get hurt over this. There are people who've been pulling strings, people who will do whatever it takes to get what they want. And they're not going to stop until they have it all." My mind raced. Was this the same man who had worked for Brandon and Emily? Or was he a new player in this twisted game? And if he was warning me, why was he doing it? Was this his attempt at a power play? Or was there something deeper happening? "I can't trust you," I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of fear and defiance. "I've seen what you're capable of. Why should I believe you now?" Richard gave me a hard look, his expression cold again. "Because, Mrs. Winters, you have no choice. You either take this seriously or you lose everything." I stood there, frozen, the weight of his words sinking in. Who was Richard Hayes really working for? And what was he offering me? Was this a last-ditch effort to intimidate me, or was he trying to play both sides? I had no answers, only more questions. And the truth was, I was running out of time to figure it out. The following days were filled with a strange unease, like I was walking on the edge of a cliff, waiting for the moment when everything would come crashing down. Richard Hayes's warning echoed in my mind with every passing hour. I couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming, something I wasn't prepared for. The walls seemed to be closing in, And no matter how hard I tried to stay focused, my mind kept drifting back to him, to the question of who was truly behind all of this. I couldn't trust anyone anymore, not even my own family. The silence in the house was suffocating, and I found myself pacing around, trying to distract myself from the overwhelming sense of dread. The phone calls from Daniel had slowed down, and I could tell he was just as concerned as I was. The case was taking longer than expected, and every legal avenue we pursued seemed to lead to more dead ends. But it wasn't just the legal battle that was weighing on me. It was the constant nagging thought that Brandon and Emily were still out there, planning their next move. I knew they wouldn't give up. Not when everything they thought they were entitled to was slipping through their fingers. It was late one evening when I received an unexpected knock on the door. I was sitting by the window, staring out into the darkened street when the sound broke through the silence. My heart jumped into my throat. The timing felt off, and my instincts told me to be cautious. I stood up slowly, walking to the door, my mind racing. Who could it be now? Another lawyer? Another threat? Or had they finally decided to take matters into their own hands? I opened the door, my hand trembling slightly, and there stood Daniel. His face a mixture of concern and urgency. "Helen, we need to talk," he said, his voice low but firm. I stepped aside to let him in, my pulse quickening. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the air. "What is it, Daniel?" I asked, my voice tight with anxiety. "What's going on?" He closed the door behind him, his expression serious. "It's worse than I thought. The situation with Brandon and Emily. It's escalating. They've reached out to a private investigator. And from what I've been able to gather, they're planning something big. Something that could change everything for you." My stomach twisted into knots. A private investigator. What were they trying to dig up? What secrets did they think I was hiding? "Tell me everything, Daniel," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of fear swirling inside me. "What are they planning?" "They're working on discrediting you, Helen," Daniel said, running a hand through his hair. "They've been digging into your past, into everything they think they can use against you. They're trying to find something, anything that will make you look unstable, unreliable. They want to paint you as someone who's not capable of making decisions, someone who can't be trusted with your own property." I felt a chill wash over me. They were trying to ruin me not just financially but emotionally. They were trying to break me down, to strip away everything I had left. "How much longer can they keep doing this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Daniel replied, his face etched with concern. "But I've already taken steps. I've made sure the legal documents are airtight, and I'm doing everything I can to keep them at bay. But they've got resources, Helen. They've got people working for them who will stop at nothing to win." I sat down, my hands shaking in my lap. It was hard to believe that this was my life now. This constant battle, this never-ending fight to protect what was mine. And still, I couldn't escape the feeling that something was lurking, waiting to tear everything apart. "Daniel, I don't know how much more of this I can take," I said, my voice breaking. "Every day, it feels like I'm losing a piece of myself. I don't know who to trust anymore." Daniel walked over and sat beside me, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone, Helen. I'm here. And I'll help you through this no matter what. But you have to be strong. You've come this far, and you can't let them win now." I nodded, trying to hold back the tears that were threatening to fall. I had worked so hard to build my life, to create something that was mine. And now, everything felt like it was slipping away. But I couldn't let them take everything from me. Not again. As I sat there, trying to gather my thoughts, I heard the faint sound of footsteps outside. My heart skipped a beat. Was it them? Were they already making their move? I stood up quickly, my breath catching in my throat. Daniel looked at me, confused. "What's wrong?" "I heard something," I whispered, my voice tense. "Outside." We both walked to the window, peering through the blinds. My heart raced as I scanned the dark street, but there was no sign of anyone. "Nothing," I said, feeling a wave of frustration. "I thought I heard something." But it's nothing. Daniel put a reassuring hand on my arm. Helen, you're under a lot of stress. But you've got to be careful. They're watching you. They're waiting for you to slip up. I nodded, trying to steady my breath. I know. Just as I was about to turn away, I saw something in the corner of my eye. A figure standing across the street, hidden in the shadows. My blood ran cold. Who's that? I asked, my voice trembling. Is that? Before I could finish my sentence, the figure disappeared into the darkness. My heart was pounding in my chest as I watched the figure vanish into the night. Who was it? Was it someone from Brandon and Emily's camp? Or was it someone else, someone even more dangerous? I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The figure that had appeared in the shadows across the street haunted me for days. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me, waiting for me to make a move. Every time I stepped outside, I felt like eyes were on me, and I couldn't escape the sense of impending danger. The quiet of my home had turned into a constant reminder that I was under siege, not just by my family, but by the unseen forces trying to tear apart everything I had worked for. I couldn't afford to let my guard down, not now. But the question still lingered. Who had been standing there, and what did they want? It was late one evening when I finally got the call I had been expecting. My phone buzzed with an unknown number, and my stomach turned. I hesitated before picking it up, my mind racing with thoughts of what it could be. Helen Winters. The voice on the other end was smooth, but there was something cold about it. Yes, I replied, my voice trembling slightly. Who is this? My name is Thomas Reed. I'm working with the team that's handling the matter of your son and his wife. I need to meet with you in person. There's something important you need to know. My heart raced as I gripped the phone tighter. What was this about? Had they found something? Were they coming for me again? I don't have time for games, I said, my voice sharp. What is this about? I know you're scared, Mrs. Winters, he said, his voice softening. But if you want to make sure your family doesn't destroy you, you need to meet me. I can help you. I was silent for a moment, trying to gauge the sincerity in his words. Everything about this felt off, but my instincts told me I didn't have a choice. Where? Asked, my voice steady. I'll send you the details, he said before hanging up. I stared at the phone for a long moment, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Who was this man? And could I trust him? But deep down I knew I had to take a chance. I was running out of options. An hour later, I arrived at the address Reed had sent me. It was a nondescript building, tucked away in a quiet part of town, far from the familiar streets I knew. The area was deserted, the air heavy with a sense of secrecy. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up as I approached the door, unsure of what I was walking into. The door creaked open as I stepped inside, and I was immediately met by Thomas Reed. He was a tall man, well-dressed, with a quiet confidence that seemed to match his calm demeanor. But his eyes were cold, calculating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into something dangerous. Mrs. Winters, he greeted me, offering a handshake that felt colder than it should have. I'm glad you came. I didn't shake his hand. Instead, I stood there, folding my arms across my chest, studying him carefully. What's this all about, Reed? I'm tired of the games. If you've got something to tell me, then say it. He didn't seem fazed by my directness. It's not a game, Mrs. Winters. It's a matter of survival. Your son and his wife have made it clear they'll stop at nothing to get what they want. But they've underestimated you. And they've underestimated me. I raised an eyebrow, confusion flooding my mind. What are you talking about? Reed walked over to a desk in the corner of the room and retrieved a file. He opened it slowly, placing it in front of me. I've been watching them. And I've been watching you. I know the truth about what they've been hiding, about what they've been trying to steal from you. And I've got the evidence to prove it. I glanced down at the file, my heart pounding. The papers inside looked official, too official to ignore. But I was still wary. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice tight with suspicion. Why are you helping me? He smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. Because I have my reasons. I've been in this game long enough to know how it works. Your family, your son and his wife, are playing a dangerous game. And they don't realize that they've crossed a line they can't come back from. I flipped open the file and started scanning through the papers. There were documents, photographs, and written accounts that confirmed everything I had suspected. Brandon and Emily hadn't just forged the will. They had been involved in far worse crimes, manipulating financial records, making illegal transfers, and even hiding assets from the authorities. They had been working in the shadows, planning their next move with cold precision. I could feel the blood drain from my face as I read through the evidence. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was about full-blown criminal activity. I don't know if I can trust you, I said, my voice shaking with disbelief. How do I know you're not working for them? Reed's expression didn't change. You don't have to trust me. You just have to trust the truth. I'm here to help you expose them. But it's going to take a lot of work, and a lot of courage. My mind raced as I tried to process everything. If what Reed was saying was true, then this was bigger than I had imagined. But could I really rely on someone like him? Could I trust him to help me bring my son and his wife to justice? Just as I was about to respond, the door slammed open, and two men stepped into the room. They were tall, wearing dark suits, and they looked like they had come for business. I didn't recognize them, but the way they carried themselves told me all I needed to know. Thomas, one of them said, his voice cold and emotionless. We need to talk. Reed's face tightened. Not now, he said, his voice betraying a hint of frustration. I'm in the middle of something. But the men didn't back off. We know what you've been doing, the other man said. And you've crossed a line. We need to handle this our way. I stepped back, my heart racing. What was going on? Who were these men? And why did it feel like everything I had just learned was about to come crashing down? The room seemed to close in on me as I stood there, caught between Thomas Reed and these mysterious men. What had I walked into? Was Reed really on my side, or had I just stepped into an even more dangerous game? I didn't know who to trust anymore. All I knew was that I had to make a choice, and fast, before it was too late.